Hello, Better Pickleball. Happy Saturday. I hope that everyone is having as an amazing day as you can. And well, you're not on the courts because I know that most of us are not on the courts today. But we've got some special stuff planned for you. You may recognize this smiling face. I don't know if he's on top or to the side of me or which direction he's in, but you may recognize this gentleman from the Pickleball Kitchen podcast and certainly the acclaimed YouTube channel. Barrett Kincheloe is joining us today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, CJ. How's it going?
It's going awesome. Are you having a good day?
As good as it could possibly be. Let's just put it that way. I'm missing pickleball a little bit, but we're making the best of it.
I think you are not the only one that's missing pickleball. We had this conversation earlier today as we've been getting ready for the summit that's coming up on Monday.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that are just struggling
Yeah.
with the time away from the courts. And the good news is we're trying to provide you some solutions.
Yeah. Well, thanks. First and foremost, thanks so much for doing this. I mean, we need this, so I really appreciate you putting this together, and it's amazing. I think when'd you come up with this idea? Like a week ago, something like that?
I called you on Monday.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Pretty impressive. I gotta say. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, I would like to say I put it together that fast, but this has been in the back of my brain for a while.
Oh yeah.
So I have been thinking about it because there's so many great creators offering just a ton of fantastic information in a variety of different formats and ways. And it's about time that we all got together. So I guess, sometimes what is make lemonade out of the lemons, right? So
I've always had this thought too of trying to get all of us together in one place. I thought about doing like a panel, maybe at a big tournament or some kind of online thing. So I think this may be the first time that a lot of us have been together in one sort of stage. So I think this is going to be really cool.
Yep. Absolutely. So let me tell you what Barrett and I have planned for you today. First, let me tell you a little bit about the summit that'll be coming up so that you're all set for that, because that's coming up on us. Believe me, it's coming up fast. And then I want Brendan to tell you, Barrett, sorry about that.
It's okay. It happens all the time.
I want Barrett to tell you a little bit more about who he is and what he does over at Better Pickleball, and because it's really some fantastic stuff, and as well as a little sneak peek of what his presentation will be on. You're on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah,
correct?
Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. So.
Yep.
He's going to give you a little sneak peek of what his presentation will be. And then we're going to put him on the hot spot. We're going to double team and we're going to answer some of your questions. So if you have a question, you can put those in the chat at any point in time, and I'll be asking you for them later. But what I'd like you to do is please put the word question in front of your question. That way I recognize that it's really a question, not just saying hello. Okay. So before that, I do want to say hello to some people because, man, we got them coming from all over. So I have to tell you, because my husband always says I'm not really funny. So the question that I asked everybody is, where are you watching from? And the very first response we got, it was from, and I have to go back up here. It's Roly Poly. And he said, I'm watching from my kitchen in Stewart's Draft, Virginia. And I said, didn't anyone tell you to stay out of the kitchen? Oh, come on, give me a break. I didn't say it was a good joke. Come on, I said it was a joke. But we got Leon. He actually joined us this morning over on Facebook. Leon in Virginia, how you doing? And Stan is back from. Have you talked to Stan yet? He is. He's in charge of the indoor pickleball championships in Birmingham, Alabama, coming up June 9th.
Yeah.
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 Are you planning to go?
I cannot, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. I'm excited for that one. Definitely.
So Stan is here, and he wants us to all get together in June. That was another thing. He's been pimping that for a while. So I got to tell you, dude's persistent.
Yeah, good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got Marlo from, oh my goodness, I'm going to say this really wrong. Mississauga. Am I even close, Marlo? Mississauga, Ontario.
That's my best guess too. Yeah.
There's more S's and other letters. It reminds me of the Mississippi, right?
I almost just said Mississippi.
Ooh, that would have been not a good thing. Let's see. We got Larry from Louisiana. Yeah, it is another warm up for the summit, Larry. We are testing out our tech, and at the same time, since you're so kind and generous to be with us as guinea pigs for our tech testing here, we're going to provide you with some great pickleball information. So hello to everybody who's joining us. Again, tell us where you're watching from today, and if you have any questions, you can start to put those in there, because what I want to do is I want to get moving on with this. And so, Barrett, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're doing inside the world of pickleball?
So basically how this whole thing started is my mom was playing pickleball for a while back in 2016. She had been playing for a year. And funny enough, in the summer of 2016, I turned 30, and I heard this kind of like knock at the door inside my head. And there was this little voice that was saying, you know what, you turn 30, you should probably start exercising. Like that would be a good idea. Just saying, like the most exercise you get is you kind of swivel over in your chair to like get up. That's basically the extent of the exercise I was getting. And so I didn't do anything for 6 months. And then in the very beginning of 2017, I asked my mom if she could just show me pickleball. Like, I'm just curious what it's about. Well, of course, you've heard it a billion times. Within 5 minutes, I was totally hooked. The next day, I was so sore. I literally could not walk down my stairs. Just wasn't going to happen. And the thing was, though, is that it was so amazing and so awesome. And I loved it so much that I thought to myself, I can't let this pass, right? I can't not show people this kind of stuff. And I love writing. I've always loved writing. I've always loved explaining things and creating visual things to help people out with stuff. So I started writing some articles. And back then it was called Pickleball Genie. That was the name of the website. And I would go to a coffee shop. I had another business I was working on that was failing. And I would go to a coffee shop and start writing articles. And thinking that I would probably not get any traffic and it would go nowhere, because that's what typically happens. Well, the exact opposite happened. Started getting a lot of traffic and kind of started freaking out because I was scared that I was doing something wrong or saying something inaccurate, right? So I was getting certifications and started playing tournaments and all that sort of stuff. And then I created the Pickleball Kitchen podcast in that was early August 2017. We've got 109 episodes now. And then I started doing the YouTube thing in probably mid 2018, got serious with the YouTube in 2019. And I know how positively pickleball impacts people. So my job is to make it easier for you so you get more impact out of it, right? You get more bang for your buck. That's my whole thing. So I teach pickleball in a very down to earth, just matter of fact way. Instead of saying that you should pronate your wrist on the X axis in order to blah, 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 which, I don't know anyone that does that. Right. But instead of saying that, I just say things like, flip the pancake over, so, things like that. Right. So I try to come at it from a very authentic point of view. So that's basically my job. My job is to make your pickleball life and your pickleball journey just easier.
And one of the things that I have to tell you is, so all of us kind of, I think, have been creating in our own shell or our own little world, and we are from all over the country. We've got East Coast, Barrett's in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
I'm out in Lake Tahoe. So we're from all over the place. And so even for us, this is the first time that many of us have had a chance to really get to know each other. And one of the parts that has not been lost on me, because I watched your videos, Barrett, and they're excellent. They're awesome. You know, if
Thank you.
I got to tell you, if you don't subscribe to his channel, please subscribe to his channel. Please subscribe to this channel as well, because
Yes, do
that's,
so.
you know, that's in part on how one of the ways that we make revenue and
Yeah.
are able to
Yeah.
keep doing this, right, is
Yeah.
through your continued support by just hitting that little subscribe button. But what I was saying, whether it's watching your videos or, you know, yesterday, Nicole Havlicek from Primetime Pickleball was here, and tomorrow Tony's coming. And I watch all of your content. And one of the things that strikes me the most is, you know, there's not one of us who's out there saying stuff that's totally wacky. Okay. Everybody we're essentially saying the same thing. We're just all saying it in a very different way. And that's what I think makes this so special for me, is the chance to really get to know all of you.
And that's the cool thing about this whole deal, because sometimes, you know, we can all explain the third shot drop differently, but in terms of the individual that's out there, they need to hear it a certain way, and it will click a certain way depending on who they're listening to. And that's just how it is. You know, like
Mhm.
someone can explain the third shot drop in a very technical way, and I can explain it by um I use this analogy, like when it comes to people asking, like, well, why is it so hard? Well, I was like, well, imagine sitting at the head of your bed and then putting a hat down on the floor near the foot of your bed. Now imagine throwing a little piece of paper up into the air and letting it land in the hat. Like that kind of explanation is going to click with certain people, but with others it may not. And so I'm glad that we're all getting together, and I'm glad that we're able to show people, hey, there's a lot of us of us content creators out there. That way you can get a good mix and see what works for you, right? See what clicks for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we go any further, let me tell you just a little bit more, a few details about the summit. And we do have a question coming up, and then I'm going to flip it over to Barrett for both the question as well as a little sneak peek on what he's going to talk about. So very first thing is, the summit is coming up fast. It's coming up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week. So the 23rd through the 25th. If you have not already done so, register for the summit. You will find a link in the show notes, which appear below this video. Get registered for the summit. I'll be sending out an agenda and all the live links later on today, because it will be from 12 until 2:30 Pacific time. That's over here, right here on YouTube Live, but you're going to need the link to be able to see that. So make sure that you go ahead and get yourself registered. It's completely free. Each presenter, and we've got 10 different presenters, are going to talk for about 20 minutes. And then you're going to have all of these experts for 10 minutes answering your questions. That's pretty cool, for free, right? I mentioned that, right?
For free, yeah.
So that's a pretty nice value to right there. So make sure you go ahead and get signed up for the summit below. So I'm going to flip you before I let you jump into your little sneak peek here. And I'm really interested in his sneak peek, by the way. I'll tell you about that in a second. But I'm going to throw a question your way, and it's so funny. Carol brings this up. You know, we talked about this. Nicole talked about this over on the Facebook Live this morning. So Carol's question, hello, Carol, by the way. Carol Hawes is a loyal watcher of Better Pickleball all the time. She says, I see some people playing with an extreme Western grip. What are the advantages / disadvantages of this over a continental grip?
Well, first and foremost, if you're using a full Western grip, then that means that you most likely have a tennis background. And so if you've got that tennis background, then that's something that you can probably handle. But for the vast majority of us, um, it's going to be basically unusable. Basically unusable. And the thing about it, though, is that the face of the paddle is smooth. You don't have the strings. And so if you're trying to, because the Western grip, you basically grip it underneath the paddle. You kind of like turn it like under. This is an awkward view, but and then you're able to kind of brush up on the ball to get the top spin, right? And so it can help with the top spin stuff. But the problem is though is that pickleball is so fast that if you need to switch quickly for like a put away, like a punch volley or an overhead smash, you got to change that grip around super super quick. In general, I think people use the continental grip like 90 to 95% of the time, if not 100% of the time, just because it's comfortable for those putaways. You don't have as much time as you do in tennis to change your grip around. So it's going to be a thing where you have to kind of look at it yourself and say, okay, I have a tennis background. I need more topspin. Can I get away with doing a Western grip and not have to change the grip immediately after or anytime soon? If that's the case, then I say go for it if it works for you. I'm a big fan of video. So put a video camera behind you and watch yourself do the Western grip kind of topspin stuff. If it's working, then great. If it's not, then maybe go to like a basic Western or maybe like Eastern or something like that. But personally, I am not going anywhere near the Western grip because I don't have a tennis background. But yeah, it's interesting. It can help get the top spin, even though you don't have the strings for like the friction and the texture, But I would try it out, see what you think. But for the most part, you probably just want to stick with the Continental.
I'm just going to say, I have to echo pretty much everything that Barrett just shared with you. I did a video on grip back in September, and I agree with Barrett. If you bring another grip from a different sport that you're comfortable with, whether it's the Western grip or, talk about extreme grips. You ever watch really good ping pong players?
Yeah, right.
Okay, those are some really extreme grips. And if you bring that from another sport and it works for you, I think you may find it effective in pickleball. But sometimes you just need to make a change. And, Barrett and I both come from golf, and I'm sure he can agree with this. You don't see good golfers with bad grips.
That's right. Yeah, the grip is huge.
You just don't. It's your only connection to the golf club. In this case, it's your only connection to the paddle. So
yeah, no, the interesting about pickleball is that you can have many different types of grips. Whereas in golf, I think it's a little bit more standardized, just a little bit.
Yep. Cool. So I know we had Dale Voigt, who's a regular on this channel, and I think he pops over at Pickleball Kitchen as well. Yeah. Hi, Dale. How are you? And we got Richard from Marlborough, Massachusetts. Larry Wang wants to know, would both of you take our edge bouncing challenge?
Sure. Send me the detail. Pickleballkitchen.com. Send me the details. I'd love to hear about it.
Oh, perfect. Great. Yeah. I play with a gearbox paddle, right? You know how big that edge is.
Oh no, you're not doing that. You're getting nowhere with that.
That edge is about like yay big. And I will tell you I will take the challenge, but and one of the things I do is whenever I'm out, I try and bounce it on the edge of that paddle because that edge is just so much thinner than most of the paddles are.
I'm gonna need to get my Big Mac paddle with the massive edge guard. That'll work.
I hear that. Big Mac Daddy paddles. I like that. Okay. And by the way, I want to read this comment to you before I get your little sneak peek here. But
Sure.
Stan Brown says, I helped get a group of ladies from a church introduced to pickleball. Both of you provided wonderful videos for those ladies to see and for me to help show them how to use the skills you taught.
Great, man. That's good to hear.
Thank you, Stan. We love, we love hearing stuff like that because that's why we make this comment. One last thing before we go back into what you're doing. I know Diego says you should invite the pros onto your channel. And you know what? Here's what I would tell you. I love watching the pros, and I think they have a lot of exposure already on YouTube. I love watching them play, and I think interviews with those professionals are wonderful. Sometimes it's a little hard to get into their schedules, where most of us, in terms of creation, we're a little bit we're a little bit more available, and we kind of have two different focuses a lot of times. Is kind of like how I would say it. So you may see some pros on the channel later on. Tomorrow you will see four-time U.S. Open, or Monday, four-time U.S. Open champion Laura Fenton Cavanda. She will be in with us as well. But most of the people in the summit are people who are creating on either teaching or doing gear reviews or certified referee, those types of people.
Yeah, I've gotten that comment before, and I it's something I always kind of go back to in my head. Like, I should have more pros on my YouTube channel and my podcast. And I think in terms of, like, I think my audience is generally around the 3.0 or 3.5 area. And I think that there's a lot that you can learn from the pros, no question about it, especially in terms of how they play a tournament or how they go about a tournament, like with mindset and stuff like that. But if I try to teach a 3.0 player how to hit a forehand topspin roll like Ben Johns does, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. You know what I mean? And so I there's a little bit of a balancing act there, for sure, for sure.
I'm not sure that shot works for anybody but Ben Johns. But
it's insane. Oh, it's insane. I mean, he can volley it too. I mean, that's what's stupid about it.
I will tell you this, Diego. We were actually talking about this earlier. Because the other thing is, you might have noticed Barrett and I look a little different. In fact, I got to tell you, I'm old enough to be Barrett's mom, and so when you were telling the story about her playing pickleball, I'm like, yeah, she's probably about my age. But anyway, when we were talking about that, one of the things that we were also talking about is I think we can learn a lot from the pros. I also think we need to be very careful, because I think depending upon the professional that you are watching, there's one big factor is, first of all, physical ability. I'm not 30, I'm 56. And yeah. I am not going to move like somebody who is at my level, who's 20 years younger than I am. My reactions are different, and my physical ability is different. And frankly, for my age, I'm in pretty phenomenal shape in terms of strength training and cardio training and those types of things, because of all the other sports I do. And most people don't have that. So I akin it to golf, that it's like trying to emulate Tiger Woods' swing or Rory McIlroy or any of those guys. A lot of times we're just not there physically. So we need to be careful, as Barrett said, with what we learn and take away and how we role model some of those things.
Yeah, like, I play singles. I play in 4019 plus with singles, and it is brutal. And I've done a couple of podcasts about singles because I love it. But I can't talk about singles all the time, because it just doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to everyone, and it's tough. It's really
yeah.
tough. But by the way, having said that, if you haven't tried singles and you're able to do it, do it. Once we get back to normal, super fun.
It's so funny that you say that. I have a video from, I want to say it's 3 or 4 national championships ago, with a lady. I loved watching the match. They were 85. One was 83 and one was 85, and they were playing singles. So wow. Don't tell me you can't play singles.
I love that. That is awesome.
It was great. I got to tell you, it was just, I hope that I am as capable as, we're not just talking out there, we are talking capable players. These two ladies were. It was fantastic to watch.
Awesome.
Okay, so enough of that. Barrett, why don't you give us a little sneak peek? And when he told me this, again, we have this golf background in common. And one of the things that you haven't heard a lot about inside of pickleball is the mental aspect of pickleball. Now, because of our golf background, both he and I are very familiar with that, because boy, I'll tell you, you're not going anywhere in competitive golf if you don't have that skill set in your bag. And so when Barrett told me that this was the topic he wanted to talk about, my ears kind of went, woo. So tell us more, please.
So my topic is about the mental ups and downs of pickleball, and especially during this whole coronavirus thing. for a lot of us, I'm not going to talk about the virus in particular, but the situation we're in is quite new for a lot of us. And it affects pickleball as well, though. And so if you're the kind of person that has played pickleball every day, or maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and you've been playing consistently for the last 3 or 4 years, this situation could go on for weeks, maybe even months, and you're not going to be able to play. And so the question is how do you keep yourself essentially mentally sane, but also how do you handle coming back to pickleball when you haven't played in so long? And I've done this before. And again, I have a golf background, so like the mental side of things, it hardly bothers me because golf just ruins you when that with that stuff. I mean, you learn real quick in competitive golf how important the mindset stuff is. So I'm very grateful in that regard. But when you come back to pickleball when you haven't played in weeks, months at a time, it can be devastating if you're not used to what it's going to be like. It's not just that you're rusty, it's that you can't handle the rustiness of it. Right? Like that's like the most important part of this whole thing. You have to be able to mentally handle the rust that's going to be there and understand that it's not you. In fact, it's just that you need to get used to it again. And so there's also a couple of things I want to talk about in terms of your competitive advantage. A lot of people feel like sitting at home and not being able to play. And yeah, like you can go bounce the ball against the wall and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people think that, their sharpened edge is going to be blunt by the time this thing is over. And that may not exactly be the case. And so I'm going to be talking about that.
That's awesome. Cause again, I sound like, oh, I agree with you. I agree with you, but I do agree with you. I agree with what you have to say. There's so much that you can do right now. And, I find this area of pickleball really untapped.
Totally. Totally. I mean, we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, but the podcast doesn't have as much reach as the YouTube channel does. So I'm planning on doing a video about it at some point, but it definitely is an area that we really don't talk about enough. And I think that makes sense because most people don't really play competitively, right? They don't play in tournaments, they just play for fun, which is totally fine. But even in a rec play or a private play sort of setting, it's still gonna help you out, especially as we near kind of the end of this whole thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so there's your little sneak peek. Okay. So you got to come back. Tell us again your time.
Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific,
Perfect.
3 p.m.
Perfect.
my time is what I say.
Perfect. Okay, let's see. We got some questions. So, okay, this one came from Roly Poly. Said, I come from a baseball softball background. We are taught to go after every ball. Isn't that the truth? How can I untrain my brain to not go after the out ball?
Yeah. Okay, so you mean a ball that's flying, like let's say you're at the kitchen line, it's flying up above you and it's going out. I'm assuming that's what they mean.
I'm guessing that's what he means
Yeah.
from the way it's written. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have to break the barrier. So you got to do it just once, and then you have to assimilate that feeling. So let's say you're at the kitchen line, and someone hits a ball that's clearly going out. You literally have to force yourself to do absolutely nothing and let it go completely out without any question, right? You just need that one. I think you can kind of sometimes this kind of mental stuff can overwhelm people because they think like, oh, I need to be perfect and it needs to happen all the time. No, just focus on the one time. If you're able to do it once, let that ball go out, let it fly past you. Who cares if it's in or not? Okay. Do that one time, focus on what that feels like mentally, physically, right? Then that will give your brain the information you need in order to do that again. And then again, and then again, over and over and over again. And what will happen is the balance will swing back and forth. So you'll be letting out balls go that are clearly going out. And then you'll train yourself so much to where you'll actually let the ball go by, but it's in. And then you'll go the other way and then the other way, if that makes sense. So you'll be letting balls go out, right? And then let them go out so much that you'll actually be not returning balls that would be in. And it's a constant balance, but you got to focus on that one time. Just focus on that one. And eventually you'll get used to it and you'll be better in the long run. So again, just don't like overwhelm yourself with this kind of stuff. I think when people overwhelm them stuff with the mental side of things, it drives them crazy. I'm not saying you're going crazy or anything, but you can really, it can lead to the yips actually. And what we've talked about in the podcast is this mental, and of course, all about the yips. We know all about it because of our golf background, but yeah, just focus on that one time and you'll get it. You'll get it eventually.
By the way, if you do have more questions, go ahead and please keep them coming, put them down in the questions. But I want to follow up on this one, Barrett. Just curious, out of 10 balls that are potentially out, okay? So I'm standing at the kitchen line, out of 10 balls that are kind of maybe borderline, how many balls do you think would actually fall in?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I have no idea. I don't even like. I'm thinking about all sorts of different situations and stuff. A safe answer would be half.
A safe. You're right.
Depends on the situation, right? Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, here's the thing: is that you could almost actually say none, or you could say all, because the thing is that it's okay to hit an out ball. It's better to hit a ball that you think might be going out than to let it go in and not hit it, right? So it's like kind of I look at it as a better safe than sorry kind of maneuver here. But in terms of answering your question, maybe half. I don't know.
And the reason that I asked that, I don't have any hard evidence out of this, but I think for many players, and I think this differs at your level, because letting a ball go out is a learned skill. That is
Totally.
that's a totally a learned skill. And the more you play, the better you're going to get at that skill. I mean, just like, think back to when you first started playing pickleball. What was your longest dink rally? Like 4, right? And you get to a certain level and now all of a sudden it's 10 dinks or 20 dinks, or Jordan and Nicole had that 174 almost all dink rally
right
on their channel recently. So that number changes, and the same thing happens when the ball is going out. I'm guessing that for people between a 3 and a 4.0 level, that out of 10 shots, that's somewhere between only 1 or 2 are actually in. I would say they chase out balls 80% of the time.
At that skill level, that would make more sense because of how typically people around that area have harder time with pace, controlling the pace. Yep. So that would make a lot more sense. Yeah, definitely. Yep. That's a good answer. You answered the question better than I did.
Well, and I'm looking, Diego said 20%. I mean, I just, it's something that I think about a lot. In fact, Laura Fenton-Cavanda was in town. Oh, this was several years ago. And she was doing a group clinic, and everybody in that clinic at the time was playing 3 to 3.5. I mean, and if it was a 3.5, it wasn't like a top 3.5 level.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where everyone was playing at that period of time. And she just like stepped back. She said, okay, just stop. I mean, like literally she stops the whole clinic. And she said, here's what I want you to do. And if you've ever gotten one fired at you from Laura played racquetball.
Oh boy.
Okay. So Laura told me that the speeds in racquetball would sometimes be like around 200 miles an hour. Right. I mean, so like, Laura can rifle a forehand when it's flying at you, right? And she just sat there and she said, nope, you're going to sit here and you're going to, when you think it's out, you need to let it go, right? And I mean, she just drilled everybody time and time and time again. I mean, I bet you she did it for 20 minutes. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching that trajectory, from the side while everybody's doing it. And I'm like, that's out, that's out, that's out, that's out. And people were still chasing them. But they learned through that drill and doing that drill by like calling it's out, that they started to leave some balls go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like the most important part of it is just like having the confidence to let it go. I think we try to do too much in our game. I think that's where people get into trouble is when they try to control too much, and sometimes you just have to literally let it go and let it let it do its thing, and
Yeah.
it kind of solves itself.
Yeah.
It's also essential for bangers. You know, I get a lot of questions about like bangers. I kind of hate that term a little
I know.
bit, but
I do too. I do too.
like one of the big things about bangers to fight against them is to let the ball go out because most of them are, you know.
Yeah. I I always say to people, or I say it very often, I said, your best weapon in this situation is a duck.
Yeah, it's the baseline. It's outside the
Yeah.
baseline, right? It's that fence.
Just get out of the way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I like that, Dale added too. He says, start calling every perceived outball. And that's exactly how I teach it is, the way that really that Laura did it is start calling the outballs. You got it.
And those are the old, test it true, shoulder high, let it fly kind of thing. And in advanced play, like I play 4-5 mainly, and at that level, sometimes it doesn't work because people have a lot of top spin on stuff. But shoulder high, let it fly is also a good.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a good pointer.
Unless you happen to be as high as Riley Newman, right?
Right.
If you don't know Riley, what is he? He's like 6'5"
He's a tall dude.
ish, I would guess.
He's 6 foot plus. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of that.
With
Let's
his
see.
two-handed forehand. Very, very interesting.
So we have another call or another question from, let's see, CCB5NG. At least that's how far I see it, right?
I recognize that name.
Yeah. Okay. It says, sometimes my partner gives feedback during the point or after. Sorry that I'm laughing. Whether they saw the ball go out and out of the court, and that helps gauge future balls. At least they're giving you the right kind of feedback, right? I thought that was going somewhere else.
Yeah, me too. No, but that's very true, and that kind of ties in with we talk about player knowledge a lot. So if you can have like a bank or like a library in your head of different kinds of players, and you'll kind of know their tendencies, and then that can help to gauge those out balls in the future.
Cool. Let's see. So we have another question, and we'll throw this up here, but I also want to tell you, we have Don Stanley coming in for rules. This is more of a rules question, but we're going to throw this one out there. It said, if your opponent slams a ball and it hits you directly on the foot and it goes back over the net, I'm going to say you got really big feet. Or really like steel toe shoes. Do we have we also have Tyrell Pickleball will be coming on, so maybe is he making some steel toe pickleball shoes? Who gets the point? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you have that one, Barrett.
The smasher gets the point for sure. Yeah, it has to hit your paddle, wrist or below, I think it is, in order for it to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But that, you know what? That's one of those things too. It's we got Don Stanley coming on, and he is a certified referee. He is the referee trainer. He's trained 143 people how to referee.
Wow.
Yeah, he is, and he is doing the work. He's, I think, the head referee for the Pro Pickleball Players Association, for the PPA. Which has just been recently formed. And so he'll be on, I believe he's on Tuesday. But you know what? Don't take my word for it, because I've been looking at so much stuff. I can't keep anything straight right now. Make sure that you sign up, register for the summit, and you'll get all the accurate and the best information up to date. So Barrett, I'm not seeing other questions come into the chat. We'll give everybody just a little bit more time to get one more question in, because what would you like to send this group away with? What would you like them to
know? Well, in case anyone doesn't know me, obviously I have a YouTube channel, Pickleball Kitchen. I have a website, pickleballkitchen.com. I also have a podcast, the Pickleball Kitchen podcast. So if you guys are interested in any of that, check it out. Definitely. I also have an email list that comes with a free course. So if you're kind of newish to pickleball, or if you kind of like my style, you can go onto my website and sign up for the email list, and you'll follow the instructions, and you'll get a free course that comes in your inbox every Monday morning for like 7 or 8 weeks, something along those lines. It's funny because I was actually about to release my first service, which is a video analysis service, where I take your video into an editing um, program, and I talk about it, give you feedback on what's going on. I draw lines all over the screen and stuff like that. But with coronavirus, I've had to put that on hold, of course. But if you're still interested in that, if you've got some video of yourself playing, laying around, I can still offer the service for you. I've gotten some really good feedback on that. If you like my style with video, you'll kind of get the same style. So.
And I really want to put a plug in there for that, Barrett, because video and especially it's one thing for someone to analyze what you're doing for video. What Barrett's talking about is something completely different in terms of taking it, putting it into a video editor program and actually showing you what you could do differently.
Yeah. You can actually get a kind of a sneak peek of what it would look like if you watch my video about, I think it's the most important tool that you could have in your pickleball game. The thumbnail, I have a blue shirt on with a thumbnail. I'm holding up like a camera thing, kind of like this. And you'll get a kind of a good idea in terms of what in terms of the video editing, what I do for that. So.
Cool. You know what? We had 2 more questions come in, and I know they've been sitting here this whole time. So I really don't want to leave, if that's okay with you, Barrett. I really don't want to leave.
Oh yeah, this is my job.
Okay, I really don't want to leave them hanging high and dry. Now, I will tell you also, Diego, I'm going to ask your question, but make sure you come back to talk to Don Stanley, because he's certified. We know the rules and we have a really good understanding of the rules, but for an even in-depth thing, Don can help us as well. So make sure you come back. But Barrett, if you can just go into, Diego wants to know about legal and illegal serves.
Yeah. So an illegal serve is when you hit a ball that's either, I always get it mixed around. There's something about your wrist. Like, is this like what's below your wrist, like going this way or this? I always get it confused, but basically the ball has to be struck below your navel, okay, below your belly button, and it has to be struck below your wrist. Okay. So I can't, if I hold my phone up here, I can't strike the ball and with my serve like this because my wrist is below the point it's striking. It has to be like that. Boy, that's uncomfortable. It has to be like that. So it has to be below your navel and below your wrist. I think there was some language in there as well that talked about how it had to be an upward arc. I want to say they removed that in the 2020 rules. I'm not totally sure. They didn't? Okay. I think maybe they removed the diagram. I forget, but yeah, that's basically the deal with that.
Yep.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's very simple. I will tell you this. I did a video back in early December, and I'll put some links down in the show notes on legal and illegal serves. And it was kind of funny because I got a lot of comments on some of the serves, and I knew they'd be close. That's why I put those in there, whether or not they were legal or illegal.
So here's an important clarification. I said that a little bit wrong. It's the highest part of the paddle, as right. Stan said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. I knew we had one more, so I don't want to leave out. Oh, there is. Okay, so I can't see if it's Mario or Marlity. Sorry. Sorry about that. I can't see that far, but I can see the question. Do I use the same pickleball paddle for indoor or outdoor play?
I think so. I really don't like telling people to use different paddles for different situations. You know, even if you think that you have the exact same paddle, it may be a different weight. It could be off slightly in some way or the other. It has to be something where you've got to be really sure that it's going to be good for you. Try it out. If you have a second paddle, just go ahead and try it out and see what you think. If you're okay, if you're comfortable switching back and forth, depending on if you're outdoor and indoor, then I think that's okay. And you can start to kind of develop that for yourself. But in general, I don't recommend it. I don't. I think it's there's too many different things going back and forth. And maybe if it's a seasonal thing, like for example, let's say you play outdoor for most of the summer, and then for most of the winter you're indoor, and it's very clearly separated like that, then maybe, yeah, maybe it's okay. But in general, I don't recommend it.
Okay, so Barrett and I finally found something we disagree on.
All right.
I do have an indoor and outdoor paddle. Now, what I will say is this: he hit the nail on the head. Is that you should really give it a try. What I found is the difference for me is because I play with a different ball indoors versus outdoors. The ball reacts differently. So indoor, the ball we're playing with is a slower ball inside. The surface is a little bit slower, and I wanted a paddle that had a little bit more pop inside. And outside, I wanted a paddle that I had a bit more control over. So see?
Yeah, I guess that would also fit if, if you're having trouble with like pace from an outdoor ball, then that could change your decision too.
Mhm.
Potentially, yeah. But like, yeah, just personally, I don't. There's too much going on. Like with the grip, like maybe it's something with my grip or something, but I can't I can't change my grip. Can't stand it.
Well, and you know what? That's the funny thing because in many of my videos, and I've seen some of this in yours too. We'll start the video, especially with we get a question. Somebody say, "What do I do when?" And the first thing out of my mouth is, "It depends."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it depends. I don't
Yeah.
know that there are absolute rights and wrongs.
Bringing the different ball definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess maybe I was thinking indoor as in like indoor still with a Dura. When you changing balls all the time, I mean, I pretty much only play outdoor. I can see that. I can see there being a case for a different paddle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. And Tony from Into Pickle joined us. Hey, Tony. Hey,
Hey.
Tony, are you doing somebody mentioned, is that you who's doing what the heck is it? What did he call it? The bounce, the side,
The edge guard bounce or
the
whatever.
edge guard bounce. Are you doing that challenge? Let us know if you are, because I will tell you this: Tony is actually coming on at 2:00 tomorrow to introduce himself to some of you and to answer some of your questions. So I'm waiting for Tony to do that. But in the meantime, please go on over to Barrett's site, pickleballkitchen.com. There's a lot of great information over there. And take a look. And I got to tell you, I'm signing up for your 7 to 8 week video. Your
Good.
I want to see that. Yeah, I want to
Thanks.
see that. That's awesome.
Thank you. I think we have one more question.
Cool. What did you see? Tell
From
me.
Dale. Dale asked, "Do you move with your partner?" Boy, that's a good question. I think what probably he's referring to is like when you come up to the kitchen, like after the third shot drop, do you move? Do you move with your partner? Not necessarily. Well, I mean, certainly not all the time, because if you're playing mixed as an example, let's just say you're playing like the typical females on the right, males on the left, both right-handed players. Female hits a third shot drop to the right side of the corner. The male runs up real quickly to try to get a poach, kind of thing. That would be a situation where you wouldn't move up together. But unfortunately, it's going to be one of these. It depends. Answers. It depends. It depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's all about the angle in that third, man. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people sort of when they're coming up to the kitchen, that bounce of the third, right? That's why a lot of people are getting lower third shot drops these days, because like the bounce and that fourth shot roll is becoming so dangerous, So, oh, do you mean side to side, Dale?
I think he's talking side to side. There were actually,
Oh,
I think Dale sent me an email about this. There were a couple of other creators who talked about movement and movement patterns and
yeah.
analyzing the pros. And so go ahead if you want to finish that one, and I'll chime in here as well.
It depends on if you think, like as an example, if your partner has to move out way to the side to get a cross court dink, like a cross court dink opens up the chance that you could pop up the ball. So in that case, then yeah, you should totally move with your partner side to side, because they're trying to come down the middle with that ball. So in that case, yeah, absolutely. But sometimes it's just a waste of energy. Sometimes you see people on the court bouncing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth when they don't actually need to. And that leads back to what I said earlier about how some people just try to do too much on the court. They're wasting energy, wasting time, you know? So, yeah, it depends. I'm not sure we've ever actually talked about that. Typically, when we talk about partner movement, we talk about it coming forward, not side to side. So maybe that's something that we should visit in the future.
And here would be my 2 cents on that, because I would say as you come forward, you're following the ball. In fact, I did a video on this not too long ago. But I'm going to chime in here as the person who's over 50. And the person who's not 30 or 40 or something like that. And I understand a couple of the concepts that people teach in terms of don't take a lot of shuffle steps, bend and reach, kind of stay in place, keep your zone out in front of you. That's great when you're 30 and 40. If you look at some of the top players in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, their movement patterns as a team are different from the movement patterns that you see in 30-year-olds. And let's face it right now, if you're looking at top players' videos, Simone is the oldest one and she's 40. Everybody else is under that. So I think your physical capabilities also have to play into the most efficient movement pattern on the course for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. It's a good answer.
Yeah. Cause I would tell you, I took one of the things that I did is this is back when I first started playing pickleball. I took a lesson from a top ranked player coach. She's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. And she asked me to do something at the non-volley zone. And it seemed very logical to me, right? I completely understood it. And it had to do with how I was moving. And about 2 or 3 weeks later was the very first time that I met Laura Fenton-Cavanda. She came to town. She had just won the US Open. It was just one of those chance meetings. And Laura and I were out on the court. And basically, Laura looked at me and she said, I need you to do this, which was the total opposite of what this other person had told me. And I was like, okay. And I didn't say anything because we're in a group setting, but I knew that I had to clarify this because if I'm confused, I'm not going to perform, right? So I went to her afterwards and I took her aside and I said, you told me X, this person told me Y. Help me understand because they sound so different to me, and they were completely different in terms of movement pattern. And Laura said to me, she said to me, that's because I'm 55 and this person is 29.
Right.
And I was like, okay, all right. And so I did things a little bit differently. And ultimately my movement pattern was better.
And that is the really challenging thing about teaching pickleball online.
Absolutely.
I mean, there it is. That's it right there. Because I always have to think to myself, wait a minute. Okay, I'm 33. I'm still pretty quick on the court, but there are a lot of people that aren't. And so that becomes a big challenge. Sometimes I get stuck in that. Sometimes I say never. That's one thing I've been talking about recently was the whole never say never thing. Being careful with the kind of the black and white thinking, the dogma side of things, like you never want to do this, man, or you always want to do that. Yeah. That can be a hard thing to it's a hard habit to break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. In fact, Barrett and I were talking about this earlier because as you know, if you're here on Better Pickleball to any length of time, you know that I'm preaching fitness because I think that, I know that most pickleball players over 50 don't reach their true potential because their fitness stands in their way. The body simply cannot do what the mind is asking it to do. And I shot a video a couple of weeks ago about the backhand dink. And Barrett and I were talking about movement patterns. And I said, if you watch, and Barrett's coaching all the time. So he sees this and he's not coaching people who are 30, right? I mean, so he sees this in a lot of the players that he's working with. As an example, you see players when they don't have strong enough legs, if they don't have strong enough hamstrings, which is the muscle at the back of their legs and quads, and loose enough calves with good balance, they will not bend from their hips and their knees. They will bend to hit a dink from their waist.
Right.
And so when you start to look at those types of things, that's where you have to really be careful about the movement patterns and make sure that the movement pattern you're trying to execute, that you have the physical ability to do that, which leads back into, that's why video analysis can be such a great tool. So if you really want to focus on your pickleball game, I would recommend, Barrett does it. I do video analysis. There's multiple teachers out there who are doing it. I think Barrett and I are doing it in a pretty unique way. I'll put a little plug in for that, just in terms of how we edit videos and send it back for you. But, if you're really interested in how is best for yourself and you don't have access to a great coach in your area, that could be a nice alternative to help you.
Yeah, it's basically, from me, it's basically getting like your own Pickleball Kitchen YouTube video just for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got really good editing software, and I understand the technology and stuff, so I can zoom in, do slow mo, draw all over the screen,
Right.
show it to you as clearly as humanly possible.
Yeah. Well, Barrett, how do we go through an hour, dude?
I record. Let's see, how long did we go? Did we really go for an hour? Wow, we did.
It's 2 hours and 2:56 my time. So yeah,
well,
we went for an hour.
I've been doing one of these a week for about almost 2.5 years, maybe. So kind of used to it. This is basically doing a podcast for me. So.
Well, Barrett, it was totally fun. I hope everyone here enjoyed it. Don't forget, get registered for the Pickleball Summit. Barrett is going to be on Wednesday. You don't want to miss his presentation on the mental aspect about pickleball, because that's just not something that you hear a lot of people talking about. So Barrett, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Thanks to all of you. Barrett, if you want to say goodbye to everybody, because you go ahead.
Thanks, CJ. Once again, thanks for putting this whole thing together, and thank you for the invite. And guys, I will see you guys later. Thanks for coming.
And you know what I always tell you? I always end every video with it. Together we can train smart, live bold, and age well. Have an amazing day, everybody.
See you guys.